This is Larry Starks, Larrystarks, middle name Donnell. This is the Starks family. I'm the second to the youngest of 10. To my right is my brother Gary. Gary Starks, GaryStarkse. In the
All
middle,
capitals.
all capitals.
All capitals.
He is the second to the oldest. So I can run down our list of siblings. Our oldest brother passed away. That's Bernard Starks, otherwise known, people know him as Bernie Starks. He is actually junior, only because he has a third. And that's another story we'll tell you later on with my father. Gary's second. Third is my brother Daryl Drew Starks. We call him Woody. There's a name with that where one of the similar story goes, somebody couldn't say Daryl Drew. They say Daryl D instead of, so they start calling him Woody. And that's my brother Woody. The fourth is my brother Terry Lance Starks. He's the fourth. He's the saxophone musician of the family. Fifth is my brother Charles Graylin Starks. Anyone who knows him calls him Graylin. Growing up, that was his name was Graylin. So that's how you know how long you've known. If somebody say, how's your brother Graylin? They know it's for a long time. Then after that is my sister Donna. So Donna starts the bottom half of the 10. So, and actually the story goes also, Donna's the first person out of those 10 to call my mom. So she was the first person to start that as well.
And there was a reason for that, because she said, Mom, the reason I call you Mom is because Chief's boys call you Theola.
Because it was all 5 boys at the top. So,
but the other thing about Donna, I will insert this about it. She was named by my brother Bernice in honor of of Donna Reed. There was a TV show called The Donna Reed Show. And Bernice loved that woman. I didn't love her. I loved Mary, the daughter. But Bernice wanted to have Donna named after Donna Reed. But my mother said, well, she wouldn't do Donna Reed, but she did Donna Renee. So that's how she got her name. And she was very rebellious. She was the very first one of us that talked back to my father. And we thought we had a funeral and no sister. But he let her get away with everything. We couldn't do that.
Definitely not.
So that was Donna.
Yeah. And so after Donna is my brother Harry Justin Starks. And everybody has something behind their name as to how it happens. And I think he was named after his doctor.
After his doctor.
Mm-hmm. Then after Harry is my sister Jackie. Of course, she's Jacqueline Bouvier. Of course, you know who she's named after. So she's Jacqueline Bouvier Starks. So she's, of course, named after Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. Larry D. Starks. I was actually named on a bet. My cousin, whose name is Larry Donnell Henderson, him and my mom, while my mom was pregnant, she, after all the boys, she wanted another girl. So she was so sure she was having a girl. And my cousin said, no, you're having a boy. And I said, well, if you have a boy, you got to name it after me. Well, here I am. So I'm named after my cousin, Larry. Of course, the baby of the bunch is my little brother, Timothy Byron Starks. He was, of course, named after a book in the Bible from one of my mom's friends, Joyce, I believe it is.
Yes, and it was one of the worst days of my life, because she said, let me name this baby. And my mother, they kind of talked about it a bit. And she said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the Bible and open it. And whatever book I open it to, that's going to be his name. Please don't let me have a brother named Deuteronomy, please. I don't. Worse than that, not a Ruth or nothing, please. So she turned in there, and just by chance, she turned to 1 Timothy. I was relieved, but that's how he got his name and how it came about.
One girl.
Two girls. Jacqueline Bouvier, Donna Renee and Jacqueline Bouvier.
So two out of 10. The two of the most spoiled people you ever want to meet in your life.
And you gotta spoil your girls.
I spoil my girls too, but yeah,
But my father later on did admit that he was trying for a baseball team. He loved baseball.
And how many of us play baseball? None.
I know a few because of him and his love for baseball. He would have a baseball game on the 9-inch black and white television and 2 radios. So he's listening to 2 radios and watching the television. He was an absolute baseball man. He was.
Yeah, so our father, Bernice O. Starks, Sr., born in Texas.
Arthur City,
Texas.
Which is right across the Red River from Oklahoma. just north of Dallas, about 40 miles just north of Dallas.
Born to Myrie Fulton and Clyde Starks, as we affectionately know her as Big Mama. Of course, everybody got a Big Mama. So those were his parents. His father actually passed away when he was really young. So anybody that knows us, knows my father, they call him Chief. Anyone that knows that he's Chief to us, anyone, all of the kids, he's Chief. Grandkids is usually, grandpa, whatever, but anybody else in the neighborhood is Mr. Chief, Mr. Chiefy. And that's it, and everybody asks, why do you call your father Chief? Well, because that's what you told us to call him for one. But that's just, but as the story goes, you could tell us how he got the name Chief.
He got the name because he was chief of the domino table. There was nobody around that could beat this man at dominoes. So that's why they started calling him Chief. And besides, he had that little native feature about him also. But they called him Chief because of his ruling the domino tables. And he was good at it.
And people, even when we went back to Texas or Oklahoma, people would know he was coming to town. And they would gather up their money or whatever else it might be and come try to be Chief in dominoes. Me growing up, I'll tell, about him growing up. Later on in life, he retired. It didn't work for a while. But his job was, honestly, he hustled dominoes. He'd go downtown every day. He'd give us our little lunch money in the morning. We go in and get us $1.50, whatever it might be. Get that folded up dollar. He'd leave home with maybe $2, come back with a pocket full of money, playing dominoes. All that was his
Just
job.
To clarify, though, it wasn't a hustle in the term that we would think
Right.
of a hustle.
Right.
But he loved to play, and people loved to challenge him. He wanted to challenge him. And, they never played for more than a couple of dollars, like that. But, his thing was that he was somewhere for him to go, during that time that was going on in our family. There was a lot of things going on there because, we were raised up through the turbulent 50s and 60s. And I call our generation the reconstruction generation. From that slavery, then coming into that 20s and 30s and 40s, racism that was going on there. And with us being directly connected to it because of our aunts and uncles and them telling us the stories and where you can go, where you can't go, what to look out for, what to stay away from. We came up through that. We came up through the turbulent times of the 60s when I was going through my 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old during that time there with us knowing about Medgar Evers, hearing about that, and Malcolm X. Of course, we were there and knowing what was going on there. Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, John Kennedy. We were there during these turbulent times. The March on Washington. We knew about everything that was going on down there in Selma and Alabama. We were kept in tune with that stuff because we still had family members that were down there. Even though out here in Phoenix, where we ended up at that time there, we were away from the main racism, but at that time, Phoenix was still in the top 10 most prejudiced cities in the United States. And we still had it. You couldn't go to Glendale, you couldn't go to Scottsdale, you couldn't go to Paradise Valley, you couldn't go to Avondale, and they would tell you, just don't go. So we stayed on the south side. Every now and then we would go downtown, but mainly you stayed away from it. And that was the thing about us coming through that time there, coming to the 70s, just kind of getting out of that 60s harshness of that time there. The 70s started to kind of change things. So that was our new reconstruction with us getting our identification and then figuring out what we needed to do to start trying to bring some ideas that we wanted to have put out there because now we need to take the reins. And we started trying to do that here we'd moved to Tucson in 1966. We moved to Tucson in 1966 from Phoenix. And we wasn't there on the campus, but South Mountain High School was built on the south side of Phoenix because they had Booker T. Washington and Carver downtown. And the word was the white people wanted to get all those black people out of downtown, so they built them a school as far south as you could build it, right up to the mountain, not right up to the mountain, but on that south side of town to get the black people out of the downtown area. And then on that first day, because of that school, the way it was built, it was one of the nicest schools in the city. And a bunch of Caucasian white people did not want that school to open for those Black people. And they wanted to shut it down. And there was a riot on the first day that they opened the school down there. I had a cousin who had started there at the school, and we were hearing little things, but the things got kind of dangerous when one of the guards there, his name was Travis Williams, and they were coming onto the campus, and he had taken out his revolver at that time there. And the word was that the guys who came there, a couple of guys in there, they shot at the school, and he shot back at them. But then they wanted to have him arrested for attempted murder. This was still Black and white Phoenix. So it was one of those kind of stories where when you hear stuff like that, and we had lived like about a couple of miles from South Mountain High School, still on the south side of town. And we were getting ready to really do some great things there until we found out that my father, he had been working in Tucson for a couple of years. There was a partner of his, well, it wasn't really a partner, but a co-worker of his in Phoenix. They worked for the Arizona Testing Laboratories. And he wanted to come down to Tucson and open an organization down here, wanted to open a business down here. So he kind of talked my father into coming down here, and those two were going to kind of build this business together. It's what they were going to do. And so my father came down, he had gotten started, and after he had gotten things kind of in place down here after 2 years, then he moved us to Tucson at a very terrible time. Didn't want to go, leaving all my friends, leaving all my fame, having to start over. And we came down and we started at Pueblo High School. We walk around Pueblo High School and I noticed one thing that bothered me. They wasn't checking the white people. See, now up there, white people walk past, you better nudge them or do something to them, push them up against the locker. You don't just let them walk around. And remember now, we're still in this phasing through with this turbulent racism that was going on still in the country and where we came from there. So I'm not telling y'all, let these white people walk around, y'all don't do anything? This is crazy. And I had a few people look at me like, no, you're crazy. Well, where do you get this from? So it took me a while before I realized that maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. You know, you just got people, you know, Black people, white people, Mexican people, Indian people at that time, you know, they just hanging out together, playing around each other, all on the same team. And it was crazy. But it took me a while before I actually got molded into this thing called real life. And I accepted it. And even though we did go back up to Phoenix to help South Mountain burn down the cafeteria for Martin Luther King after they killed him, it was just the times. So here in Pueblo, Bernice and I, we started getting molded into Pueblo. Bernice, he just got right into it right away. It took me a little while, but Bernice was always one of those kind of people that give me a scenario and I'm going to adapt to it and I'm going to make it work because that's the way it should be. He's always looking at things from, if you want to fix a machine, first you got to know how a machine works. And the best way to get into making it work is to get on the inside of it. So that was his thing. And we had a lot of clubs that we were into at Pueblo High School. My main thing was the Black History and Culture Club that we started there. They didn't have one, so we started up there, me and a few of my friends, Larry McNair, Shirley George, Jackie Cooksey, Hattie Prater, who was a really intellectual young lady that we found out later on at the school there. But we started this, and then that's when we started doing community things, like we did have the first Martin Luther King Day recognition walkout at the school. We were trying to get a Martin Luther King Day holiday, and we staged the walkout. We talked for 3 days with the principal who didn't want us to do it. And we tried to talk about it for a while, and we decided it didn't matter. We were going to do it. It was that important to us, and we did. But we had a police escort from Pueblo High School all the way up at that time what we call Waverly Park. And they wanted to make sure that nothing happened to us. They wanted to make sure we didn't do anything. So coming here, and Bernice and I had gotten involved in the drama club here, which was a big, big directional thing for me and my brother Bernice coming down here. We'd always done little plays and stuff like that around town up in Phoenix. And down here, it just kind of took on a whole different direction. how you relate to people, how people relate to you. You learn how to communicate with people through this avenue. So Bernice was in like about every club that they had at the school. That was his thing.
Funny story about the drama club. I'll tell you in a little bit, but I'll talk about mom first. But yes. I'm a pinpoint that about the drama club. So with mom, Theola Marie Starks, born in Hugo, Oklahoma, Grant, Oklahoma, born to John and Marie Dawson. I believe she had 14 siblings. 14 siblings.
Yes.
Yeah. So another, very large family, growing up in a very small town. My grandmother, Mama Maria, as we call it, was a missionary in the church. My grandfather was a pastor in the church, so her thing, of course, growing up is always about faith, church, the Bible, prayer warrior is what she could call herself and consider herself, just because her, her mom and everyone else is. We've had some things going on in our family. People didn't believe in miracles. After you talk to mom, you're going to believe and know and understand what faith and miracles are, understanding her. And just looking at her and my dad, two really diametrically almost opposed individuals, where my father's this, outdoorsy, kind of, in the streets, kind of, smoking, drinking kind of dude. Mom is
a bit over exaggerated.
Well, but that's
what he did. I mean,
but that's what he did.
He did smoke, he did drink, but his drinking was only occasional. If he's playing dominoes, they had a short dog. We know about the short dogs. They had a short dog. Him and his friends would come over to the house. They would have a short dog or a beer or two like that, but only, and I won't be embarrassed in saying this, only twice in my life that I've seen that man inebriated. Only twice. He just never drank like that, but he would go out there to relax and have his fun.
Bumpy faces.
But
again, it was for us. I mean, for me, like I said, I think with the top five, you always have, like a presentation, and in the bottom five, you have a presentation. And so, like with me, they would say we're spoiled on certain things, and I believe that we were on certain things. What we got and what we didn't get, and what we could get and what we couldn't do. Because I don't remember ever having a specific chore to do in the house. I don't remember that, having a chore. But here's what I do remember, is you have responsibilities. So what that responsibility is don't walk past the trash if you see it full and don't take it out. Don't go past the sink if you see a sink of dishes and don't wash them. Because you couldn't use that excuse, well, it's not my chore day. No, it's your house. You breathe in air. I'm feeding you. If you see something needs to be done, get it done. Because if you didn't, there's going to be a problem. Which, and I've seen, some of the kids I grew up with around the neighborhood, and they had specific chores. Tuesday they had to clean the living room. Thursday they had to wash the dishes. But any other day, they didn't have to do homework. They didn't have to do, I didn't even really have a bedtime. However, the rule was if you fall asleep in front of the TV and don't go to bed, it's a problem. if you fall asleep and you don't wake up in the morning to go to school when I tell you to, it's a problem. So it's really about self-monitoring, making choices for yourself. Okay, I know if I'm tired, I need to go to bed. I know at a certain time I need to get up. I know if there's a trash that need to be taken out, I need to get it done. So I think that for me, that helped me with choices moving along. It's not just, even with jobs that's not my responsibility. If I see something need to get done, I'm going to take care of it, whether it's mine.
What he didn't know was that he was being watched.
Of course.
We were like this. It wasn't that you didn't have that. My father, he would be like, he would see how you would do things. You knew what to do. I don't have to tell you what to do. If something need to be done, you do it.
Right.
And that's it. But he would watch us and he would see us do things. And if you needed to be monitored, he would do it. If you needed to be guided, he would do it. If you needed that 2-inch leather strap on you, he's going to put some welts on you. He's going to do that. And he was never that kind of guy. Didn't I tell you? And why didn't you? And you, He's just going to walk up on you. And he had like one of the Melvin Franklin kind of voices. You know what you did. Yeah. Bam!
Yeah.
He's going to put it on you. But he allowed you to have time for you to see things that you knew needed to be done and just do it. And then with him seeing that, he allowed you even more range is what he would do. but your first obligation was to your education.
Right.
I don't care what it was. Your first obligation was to your education. And that was the one thing about him that he don't care. You got 2 broken legs? I got a wheelbarrow. You going to school. We going to get you there. And that's what he would do. And he was very big about that. And as long as he saw us moving in a direction with direction, he wouldn't jump out there and say, hey, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. He would kind of let us see where we want to go. And if he needed anything to help you to do to get there, that's what Chief would do.
Yeah.
That was him. Now, getting back over here to mom and dad, that's our grandparents. He was born in a family with, there had 14 kids in his Dangerfield family that he was born into. So the Dawson clan was one that was of the whole clan. It was called the Dangerfield clan, which they came together out of Louisiana, Mississippi, after our ancestor. And we only have so little about it because after we started being told about it, I was already like in my 30s when my grandfather had came to us at a reunion, and he told us, he said, I've been holding on to this little piece about Primus. Primus, yeah, he was our ancestor who came from West Africa to the United States to where our clan started from. But after he had told us a little bit more about Primus, he didn't have a whole lot, but he did have the story of Primus being the son of a king who was Prince Primus, and that he was the one that brought to his father, because in those days there in Africa, you go out and you get into a skirmish. When you beat those people, they become your property. But just like your cats and dogs and horses, you had to take care of them. And it was costing them a lot of technical money, for them to have to keep them. So they were told about these people who would take them off their hand and give them goods in return for the people. But they at that time didn't know that they were literally selling them into slavery. As they had found out some point in time later on, but Primus was kind of like, from my grandfather's telling, the way it was told to him, that Primus was the main one there, the overseer, and he was the one that was doing the accounting, we use like that, and making sure that things were done right and proper. And only the one day when he went to go and confront the traders about the number of people that they were being compensated for. And so he went down into the bowels of the ship to do a count. And when he was in there doing the count, they weighed anchor and they added one more to their count. And they ended up in in Virginia. And in Virginia, from there, they were there and they were sold to a slaver. I got his name and everything else. I didn't think, at my house there. And from there, they were sold to another plantation in Louisiana. And so they went and they have their travels of how they were being traded from one person to another person. And if you got into Louisiana down there, that's where they settled. And after they settled there in Louisiana, then a few of them migrated to Mississippi. So that's where our basic culture coming into here came from. But even at the time there, it's like, why didn't we take that moment there and try to find out more? It's kind of like you get a guy who's a good basketball player, but he's satisfied with being a good basketball player. No, you're good, so now you want to get better. You want to keep, well, we should have been doing that same thing, but at some point, we literally just dropped the ball. We create these scenarios of, well, I had to do this and had to do this and I didn't have time. You always have time. You always have time. Stay in school, go to school, help your family, help your brothers, do what need to be done. We really had no real traditions, no real tradition other than the family reunion. We have family reunions, and every year we would go to the family reunion. That's the Dangerfield family reunion. And this year in August, they'll be having their 79th family reunion. Our Dawson family reunion, just on our grandparents' side, what number is it this year?
53, I believe.
Yeah, 53, 54 on this side here. But that part of our family, they broke away from the Dangerfield clan. But I managed a few years ago to go back to the Dangerfield clan, and it's something that we're going to start doing, and to sit there and hear this a little bit more of the history of the family. But that was the only thing that we have been doing traditionally in our family reunions.
I would say for me, what's interesting for me growing up is here's what I remember, is my mom Sundays really cooking. And I would sit around and listen because she would always sing while she was cooking, Mahalia Jackson, whatever it might be. And I would just love to just listen to her sing and cook. And of course, the fried chicken coming off that skillet with the burn mark on the back and the mashed potatoes. I mean, that was beautiful. And even on the education piece, we had games growing up that we didn't really know and understand was educational. But my mom, they brought us these encyclopedias. Of course, everybody had encyclopedias back in the day, but ours were probably the only ones that was tore up and used. Exactly. we had a psycho teacher. We run around challenging each other. We had a game called Did You Know? So we try to find out something that nobody else knew and try to catch them like, oh, did you know the capital of... Yeah, I already knew that. So you got to go back and run to try to find something. We didn't know we were educating ourselves, on it, but it was just fun for us, growing up doing those things. Christmas, my father had a tradition of he would put in an envelope. Actually, for birthdays, he would give you a silver dollar. Every birthday you get a big, nice silver dollar. For Christmas, he would go down to the bank. I think it was Valley Bank downtown. I think it was Valley National Bank downtown to get those little envelopes and put $1, clean, crisp dollar bill in the envelope and put it on the tree for you. My mom, we'd go to Globe or Zodi's, whatever it might be, pick out some clothes, get them on layaway, and hopefully by Christmas they out. You got your clothes. You got your clothes.
My father said, it ain't nothing that black people can't own if you put it on layaway.
Put a little something on it. Put a little something on it.
Put a little something on it.
And they would give us, the younger, our younger, me and my brothers, they give us like $5, right? To go down to Woolworths or somewhere to buy presents for our brothers and sisters. So we'd have to get, my sisters, they get the, 50-cent earrings and the, 25 or $1, nail polish, whatever. But, it was Christmas. It was always fun. It was always just us being together, making up games, and I remember that growing up too. We made up a lot of things to do. My brother Harry made up like 4 or 5 different games, just like, oh, we gonna run around the trees and whoever get to the other tree first, just, again, I don't know much time, but it's just growing up around that many people. It was real. It was some trying times.
And when he say that many people, he mean that many people, because most of the time, if you got a family with that many kids, the older ones don't bother with the younger ones. But they were with us all the time.
All the time.
All the time. When Bernice would go to the U of A, you get the little chocolate thing like this be with the bow leg and the pigeon toes walking behind him, and he'd take him over to the U of A. Got pictures of him up there.
There's a picture of me, an old man in a suit, sitting on Old Man at 3 years old.
With his big medallion, like Sammy Davis Jr. But we would always take them with us. We would always let them see them on, and even though we didn't consciously do it, but we wanted them to see, like this stuff when we talk about it, it's not just a word. This is an actual place. An actual place you're going to high school. We take you to high school. This is high school. He's 4 or 5 years old, but he know what high school is. Yep. These days you see these kids walking around college bound. What is college? I don't know. They don't know. So many people, even 8th graders, high schoolers, have never been on that University of Arizona campus.
Right.
They drive past it and they see it, but they don't know that it's for them also.
Right.
And that is something that we started to try to beat into these people's head. Take them and put them there. Let them see it. Tell them you own this. That's the thing that me and my brother Bernice have been doing for years, and taking them with us and letting them see. We had the most beautiful experience of growing up, because we used to have like my aunts and uncles, especially Aunt Josie. Oh my God, she was Arizona State University. My brother Joe, he was Phoenix College. My Uncle Joel, he called himself an economist, but he was just a great businessman. Uncle Billy, he was a great businessman. He was working, doing used cars. But they would teach us this stuff. They would take us with them. Every time Aunt Josie went out to do one of her experiments, she would take me with her. I'd have the books there. I'd write down the numbers. I'm like 8 years old, writing down the numbers and getting to know the different, she's doing the biology and different plants and what different leaves. I would sit there and try to draw shapes of differently. We had this education that was always around us. And it's something that we always had, something we always knew about. And we would make sure that when we were doing things, our little brothers and sisters was always there with us.
Yeah.
Anytime they needed to go anywhere, I'm going to be there with them. My sister, she was a cheerleader at Pueblo, but they'd go and do the guy raids in the morning at 4 and 5 o'clock to go take them to breakfast, and here my phone is ringing. I'll be right there. Yeah. I'm going to go get them, and anything they need, I'm going to be there for them. My youngest brother, Tim, him and I had a real close relationship, but like he said, being around this many people, and even though a lot of times they didn't know a lot of them Christmas presents, we were rewrapping stuff. We were rewrapping and repackaging stuff, we don't need it anymore. Take the card and pass it on. But even at that, we always made sure, us upper ones, that's me, Bernice, Daryl, and Terry for the most part, we wanted to make sure that the young ones, they understood this value of family and how we worked the way we were within our families. We had 28 parents. You can't have that many parents? Yeah, then you go to naming them. Every one of my aunts and uncles, even their spouses, our older cousins, these were our parents. Anybody you are around to teach and nurture you, give you that security, these are your parents. And we grew up under this umbrella of no matter what house you were in, you were never away from home. You were just at another home. And my whole mother's family, especially on her side, they were all religious based all the time. And we got that kind of nurturing, that kind of caring, and you got your education. And when you got it, you shared it. And so that's what we continue to do with the young ones. We were paving the way for them. Yeah. Had a little saying by my father one time. He said, yeah, we run in a relay and I bring you the stick. It wasn't a baton then, it was a stick. I bring you the stick and you go back and run over the same ground I ran over. You just stupid. Already covered that ground. When I give you the stick, you go forward. And that's what you do. You go forward. So we would always keep that idea that we got to do that little much better.
Let me tell you the drama story real quick. Yeah. Because again, growing up, when we came here, I was a baby when I came here. I say I'm born and bred two sons. I came here, I was like 3 months old or something. But Tucson is my home. We settled on Hancock Vista in Western Hills, moved across, to Sunland Gardens. I still call it Western Hills because I went to Cabot. But anyway, so we're going to fast forward years later. I'm a freshman at Pueblo. I'm going into Pueblo. I get my schedule, and it has drama on the schedule. So I go to my counselor. I'm like, I didn't ask for drama. Why am I in drama class? I don't know what's on there. You need to go. Okay, so I go to the drama class, and Don Caslow is a drama teacher. So I said, sir, my name is, he said, I know who you are. Okay. Aren't you Bernie and Gary's little brother? Yeah. I said, well, I didn't ask for drama. He said, you didn't have to. He said, your brother said any Starks that comes to this school will be in drama class, period. So again, that stage was already set. So fast forward, I'm a freshman in the senior play doing Native Son in my freshman year. So, and that just, catapulted, things like you said, it just made us adventuresome other things. We were always at camps, Camp Wildcat, Triangle Y Camp. We have
Kiwanis
Camp, Davis Mountain. My brother had us at Davis Mountain Air Force Base at a camp. He took about maybe 25, 30 kids from the neighborhood and took them on base to a camp. So it was always experiences for us that we knew who we were. And it was a pride about being, Starks, because when you go out a lot of places, people ask and people know. A lot of times, oh, that's Gary's brother, that's Bernie's brother. And sort of an expectation comes along with it also. And it was sometimes like, okay, that's Gary's brother, you need to leave. Like, huh? Yeah, you need to go. Or you Bernie's brother, you need to come here and do this, whatever else it might be. So, again, it was growing up, it was a beautiful thing. It had a lot of expectations, but it molded me into the person I am. And I could probably say that for my younger brothers and sisters as well, who we had to go through that same thing, especially going to Pueblo and following behind them at Pueblo. Again, the expectation was that you weren't mediocre on anything. It was you were here and people expected you to be here. My chemistry teacher, one time I got a C on a test. He like, I don't think you're a Starks. Like, huh? I gotta say, I'm like, it's just a test. Like, no, he said, no, that's not where you're supposed to be. So again, just growing up, man, it was beautiful. Even, we always had other people in the house also. My mom, it was, whether it was cousins, people in the neighborhood, whoever it was, I come home from college, it's 4 different people calling my mom. I'm like, who?
That had been going on since
forever. Like,
but we always were used to people being in the house. Because like I say, when we were coming up, it was always aunts, uncles, cousins, country cousins. You know what that means, the country cousins. Yeah. It don't matter. We were always had people. And then after we moved down to Tucson, it was even more that we would just come in and we see people and we just knew not to ask after a while. Hey, my mother's like, are they in the house? Yeah, then I let them in. So don't ask, don't question. Right. And that's all she was. But my mother was very big in the fabric of Tucson. Yeah. She would go and she would work at the elementary school. She would volunteer at Utterback Middle School, at Townsend Middle School. Yeah, almost all the area elementary schools. She was also very active. And what I found out later on, I always thought that these places, you hear about them like the Masons and the Elks, and I always had bad, but when my mother joined the organization, I'm thinking, well, it must not be that bad because I know Theola Starks ain't going to join the organization that's got bad intentions. But she was a ranking member of the Elks that they used to have on Myers over there downtown Tucson. And they would have dances and club fashion shows and stuff in there. And I was always afraid to go in there myself because I always thought places like that, everybody carried a gun. So I just stayed away. And I'm like, I'm praying for my mother. But after a while, I'm like going, if she's in there, then I'm going to have to just be there. So I started going in there more often because she was there, but she was that person. And then you start finding out the people that she actually knew. And you go like, she don't be telling us, well, she don't be telling your business. She just go out and she would just do things. But to know how even the mayors of the city at that time there, they knew her, almost all the school directors, they knew her, principals knew her. And then you had like Sandra Day O'Connor, back in the day there when she was in Arizona here, she knew her. And I'm going like, Mo Udall, they came to our house. I'm like, wait a minute, how these people, finding out to where my mother, the way she would be around people, and they, oh yeah, you need to meet Miss Starks. You need to know Miss Starks, kind of like that. There was another lady in the neighborhood, her name was Betty Liggins. And her and my mother, they were like the best of friends, and they would always be in civic organizations and anything that came. And it's just your mother. You ain't going like, this is who she is. We don't see it. But you know how most of us are. We just do things because it's just what we do. We're not paying any attention to who these people are who we're doing it with. And then when I stop and think about even all the real famous people that my father was around, I'm like, hey, you didn't really know this was Willie Mays? You mean tell you didn't know this was Joe Louis? Come on, Chief. Yeah. You had to know him. Well, you know him, but he was also a singer. They had a quartet that they sung.
Music and the Starks.
Yeah. Well, music is something that in the Starks, in our family period, you always had music. Right. It was always dancing. Man. We would always, and my mother, she was more of the one trying to get us to be that singing group, But the problem, and I kind of figured this out later on, we all had egos. All had egos. I don't care what anybody said. And we all want to be that front. So when you got that many egos going, you can't really orchestrate it. But we did. We would still do a little singing like that. But we didn't actually get out and do like talent shows with the family. We would always be individuals when we would go out and we would do it like that. But my mother, when the sisters came around, oh my God, her and her sisters, when they get together, we're going to all jump in there. And when him and his group would come over, it was Chief Starks, Don Arline, Early Martin, and William Wright. These people would get in there and we would just sit back and we would just listen to them sing. But we didn't know exactly, we thought it was just a singing group until one day my mother told us that they were going to be on the radio. And so we went and got in front of the radio to hear my father's group sing. And I'm like, if you're on the radio, You like Jesus status. You're like, oh my, you can't be anything else but Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, even though it was a gospel choir, we only related to, but yeah, my father, he would do that. And we went down with him one time to the radio station where they were going to sing, but I never know why we never went inside. We stayed outside in the car. I don't know what that was about, but I do remember two things. Up in Phoenix at this plaza, they had this big tiger out in front in a cage. I don't know what that was about, but I also knew that the sponsor was sponsored by Kentucky Fried Chicken, finger licking good. I remember that. And the one time when they were supposed to be traveling to Alabama to go do a show down there, it was, I can't remember the year there, but and years and things like that don't really click. Anyways, they were getting ready. They were going to go down to Alabama to do a show. When William Wright's son, that week before they were going to go, he choked on a piece of steak and died. And that kind of killed that for him, and they just kind of never did anything else. They would still get together and do a little singing like that, but not anything at the level of where they were. But Chief, he would still every now and then try to get a few of us, me and Bernice and Daryl. Okay, y'all ready? All right now. I'm going to walk. I'm going to talk. I'm going to walk in Jerusalem just like John. Yeah, he would sit there and he would bring it, and we would jump in there with him. I mean, my key would be up here, Bernice's key would be down there, and Terry's key would be in the middle somewhere. But it didn't matter. He had to teach us one thing about singing. Singing is what you do, not what it sounds like. That's all it is. I want to be known as a family that cared. And we always, no matter who we were around, we try to make people around us better, technically. But we would show them like, hey, this is what we do. We had friends that was out on the outside out there who, during that time, where everybody was trying a little marijuana, except me. You don't do that around me, period. You say you're my friend, get off of it, come over here. We didn't gangbang. You want to do that stuff, you get away. You're my friend, you do what I do. And I don't do any of that stuff there. I don't drink, I don't smoke. Even today, I think at that time, my 6-year-old niece, she had more alcohol in her, only because they were at a Jewish synagogue and this grape juice was on the table. She thought it was grape juice and she went over there and picked it up and I have never had alcohol in my mouth ever. Cigarettes, never. Marijuana, never. Any other kind of drugs? No, you want to be around me, this is where you have to be. I had technical friends in high school till I found out if they were smoking and drinking, you ain't my friend anymore. I wouldn't even be around people like that. So people had to come to us. They would come to our house, they would come to our family, and they would see and then they just loved it. They gravitated to it. So being that kind of family to say that we just cared about people and we tried to uphold, I say uphold, not that we were going out there doing it intentionally, but it's just the way that we would always carry ourselves around people. We never put anybody down. We never put anybody out. You were always accepted in this family. And the way my mother would say it, every one of you had a door into this family that only you come in and out of. It's not how you got here. It's that you're here. They know that. These guys bring in their wives. These are my sisters. Period. Don't do nothing around me that I'm gonna have to tell my sister on you about. Don't do it. But that's just the way our family is. And we were always that family that when you see that house, you know it's Mr. Chief and Miss Theola's house. Come in. And that's the way we've always been. And I would not like to have that change at any time.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as,
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I would say the same thing is just a family that cares, a family that, and again, my father had a saying, is someone in a better position because you were in their life. If they're not, then you probably shouldn't have been in their life in the first place. So looking at that and, again, looking at the first half and the bottom half, how I was and when I grew up, I grew up in the 80s, really, at the time of, with gangs and drugs, whatever it might be. I didn't do that. A lot of my friends did, but they respected the fact that I didn't do it. It wasn't that, oh, you have to do it or whatever else it was. You know, they can go smoke and we come back together, still go play basketball or whatever it might be. I didn't do it. But, you know, they were still my homies. They were still, you know, we grew up together because, you know, since we were 5 years old, you know, I tell them from the cradle to the grave, those are my people. And, you know, we really embraced a lot of the community. And that community embraced us. I know I'm going a little bit. Gary had in our front house, we were on the duplex in Sunland Gardens. So the front house, actually, he painted a sign on the front was the Soulful Shack in the front house. So my brother Terry had a band, and their band would come over there and practice. And so soon as they're practicing, people in the yard dancing, my mom's out there dancing, people coming around. It was just like a big old party in the neighborhood when my brother's band was there practicing. People knew they could come there and kind of hang out without feeling, you know, any, you know, we didn't have plastic on the couch. You know what I mean? You could just come hang out and have fun. I think that's why a lot of my friends, anyway, I know, and I talked to them later, is like, they just felt kind of loose and free at our house. It was no expectations of, you know, you didn't have to take your shoes off. You just come in and, you know, we eat and hang out, and they just love being in that whole atmosphere. It was just, you know, we embraced a lot of people in the neighborhood, but we still took care of business, you know, as far as education is concerned. You know, 10 people, 10 high school graduates, you know, bachelor's degrees, Juris Doctor degrees. So not to brag on it.
Hey, let's not forget the PhDs.
The PhDs, but not to brag on it. But again, understanding the times and where we are, I learned later on, it's not necessarily bragging, but it is, because I talked to some people like, we looked up to you. We looked up to you guys, saying, damn, we wanted to do that. Because I have a friend of mine, my mom used to have our caps on the wall with cap and gown. So you would have them all on the wall. And so my friend said, he walked in when they said, I want a wall like that for my kids. That was his inspiration. I'm like, so wow, that really blew me away. I didn't know that later on he told me that. He said, but that was his inspiration for his kids.
We don't leave home. We just gonna go from one home to another home. And these are all our parents and all our cousins. We all knew like brothers and sisters, literally,
Yeah.
You know, and it's the one thing that still today, my situation is trying to get the younger generation to be around and be associated with this family. Like I tell them, we go to our family reunions and I tell my kids, I say, every one of these people out here, you own, period. You own every one of them. This 75 years of reunions and this 54 years of reunion, you own every one of those years. At 25 years, it's a legacy and you get to own all of it. And I try to teach this to the kids and make them understand at that time there that we must continue with this, get the kids involved and always get the kids, have them around you.